from all of us at Inkululeko, thank you for tuning in. I'm Danielle Gervacio, and I'm the Public Relations and Outreach Coordinator for Inkululeko.
My name is Nicole Osborne, and I'm the Chair of the Board of Directors.
Great. So if you've tuned in to our previous episodes, we want to create a space where we can highlight and bolster Black and Brown voices in order to better support equity within education specifically, but also in the world as well. And so we wanted to disseminate the thoughts and insight of a wonderful professionals within the education sector and throughout the world as well. So just a recap of last episode, we had the wonderful Ron Taylor, in which he discussed how to make the U.S. school system more equitable and how to highlight Black excellence within the classroom. So I'll turn it over to Nicole to introduce our wonderful guest today.
All right, so today our guest is Taylor Battle. Taylor received her Master's of Arts in Strategic Communication at American University. And there she was a graduate research assistant and conducted extensive research on issues such as capital punishment and communication theories as it relates to policy issues, specifically among African Americans. And previously, where I met Taylor was when she was pursuing her bachelor's degree in public policy and a minor in public communications at Syracuse University. So I'm super excited that Taylor is joining us today. Some of her work experience, currently she is the Pathways Program Analyst for the Safer, Stronger DC at the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. And previously she was a Capital City Fellow for the government of the District of Columbia. She served as an internal communication graduate assistant at the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and she was a grant service specialist for the Mayor's Office of Human Services in Baltimore. Taylor has also received a lot of awards, so I know she's very involved in her community. Just two of the awards that she's recently received are the DMV Ambrose Alumni Scholarship, and previously she was a member of the National Society of Collegiate Scholars at Syracuse University. So again, very happy to have you, Taylor. You're a member of Inkuleko's Friends of Inkululeko organization and one of the founding chairs for that. So very thankful that you always lend your time and your talents for our organization and that you're able to join us today. So if you don't mind, Taylor, just tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today and how your identity has influenced your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Taylor Battle. Hello, everyone. I am from Prince George's County, Maryland, where I was born and raised. It is a predominantly African-American county. And although I did grow up in Prince George's County, I was surrounded by surrounding cities like Washington, D.C. And growing up, I really witnessed some of the inner city issues and social issues that African Americans and people of color were faced with, particularly homelessness, affordable housing, environmental issues. And it's not until I went to college where I took my first sociology course at Syracuse University where I knew that I wanted to get into public policy. I always was a community-oriented person. I knew I wanted to be involved with public service and work to address various issues in the community. I just didn't really know how to do that. But it was at Syracuse where I really recognized the role that I played in my community. And as Nicole mentioned, I had worked on various issues that have ranged from environmental issues, energy assistance, affordable housing, individuals experiencing homelessness, and most recently, which is the current area that I'm working in, which is incarceration. So that definitely has provided a new lens on my experiences with incarceration, and how I understand it to be. in the community as it relates to African Americans and people of color. So just being an African American one and being a woman of color has definitely impacted, my ability to work in the public sector and public policy.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Just like where your work found you, and it's really nice to hear. So we want to get into sort of the work that you do. Something that Nicole has said to me, and I've carried through my work since, is that self-care and prioritizing mental health and self-preservation is a really strong form of protest. So could you speak a little bit about the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, as well as the Pathways program, and how does it find solutions to systemic issues and support those suffering from grief and trauma in DC? I know that's also a huge question, but however you want to answer it, we would love to hear.
So do you want to know how I practice self-care, or?
Yes, if you want to divulge that information, we would love to hear that, if you're comfortable. But any way you want to answer it.
So I'll answer the self-care question after I talk about the office and the program. So the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement is actually a recently developed local DC agency in the District of Columbia. It was created in 2016 in response to an uptick of homicides, which occurred the previous year. So our office, we have 5 different divisions, and we use a community-oriented model to address violence prevention and public safety. And through our lens, we understand that it's not just law enforcement that helps to increase public safety, but it's also a public health issue. So we try to approach gun violence and violence in the community with a public health approach, and really taking the time to understand the deeply rooted issues and understanding like the systematic facets of it to help us do our work. We're very on the ground in the community, and addressing those issues. So the Pathways program specifically, which is the program I work for, that is the flagship program of the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. So the Pathways program, it is a 9 to 12-month program for men between the ages of 20 to 35 who live in the District of Columbia. And we serve 75 individuals a year, 25 individuals going through our program for each cohort. And the purpose of the program is for them not to re-enter, or to reduce the risk of these guys re-entering the system. So the first phase of the program is the life skills and workforce development phase, where they're at our office for 9 weeks. They receive workforce development skills, they receive mental wellness services, health and wellness. They have the opportunity to earn their GED, resume writings. They do off-site activities, get to visit city council, and job development as well. And then when they're promoted to the next phase, it's subsidized employment, where they have the opportunity to work with the District of Columbia on subsidy. And then the third phase of the program, which is the last 6 months of the program, is the unsubsidized employment. So they're on their own and working. And so far, we've 99 individuals have gone through our program. We just recently upped the amount of individuals that we serve. But it's just, it provides the opportunity for these guys to get off the streets and just really tap into their potential. And we have had a huge success rate. And we understand that change, there are stages of change, and change isn't going to happen overnight. Understanding that these guys, they've encountered generational trauma, childhood trauma, all of which have resulted in some of the decisions that they've made. So when we say a public health approach, those are the type of things that we're looking at to address those issues. Now, with the work that we do, just our office in general, there is a lot of trauma associated with the type of work that we do. Not my division, but another division. We get all homicides that happen in the District of Columbia come through our office. And so the violence intervention team is responsible for that. But, it's always something. And so with that, to your point about self-care, it's important that we do keep our self-care intact. And our office has done an extremely great job at ensuring that our self-care is maintained, taking off and journaling, vacationing, and things of that matter. So
all really important things. I just want to I think that I just want to reiterate, like, you made incredible points about how systemic racism has all of these facets, right? And they like intersect at different points. And it's like incarceration and recidivism isn't just because of violence, right? It's because of education, lack of funding in education, what have you, lack of support in mental health, things like that. So I think that it's really important that while we're trying to go through the process of changing the system, we have to know that all of these things intersect. And I think that's an incredible point that you made. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I also think that it's our role to educate others as well. Granted, people do have their own opinions and their own perspectives and their own viewpoints on various things, but when certain people just aren't exposed to those type of environments, or they're not personally affected by it, it's kind of difficult for them to typically understand or to grasp like the real issue, the real root of the problem. So, it's also important to spread the knowledge as well.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So we did want to touch on, for you personally, what do you hope that your office can achieve in terms of equity and Black solidarity, as well as if you have a message for students, youth, or your average citizen, how can they aid and support in this effort?
Yeah, so my office actually it's an office of 30 individuals, and we're all people of color. We're all minorities. Literally, the whole office makes up minorities. So, in terms of solidarity, I just hope that we all continue to understand the role that each of us play or to achieve like the common good that we're aiming to achieve in the community as it relates to gun violence in DC, because it isn't easy. So just really recognizing that and being like solid in that realm, for sure. I think your last question was.
I'm not muted, right? Okay. I just wanted to see how like average citizens or the youth can participate in helping the office in any way they can to further or advance your guys' mission.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So like I said, we're a new agency. So we currently we do have a social media. We do have rallies that we hold, different community events that we hold. Those are like in-person ways that people can help. But just from afar, does anyone nationally, internationally, I would definitely just encourage people just to stay informed and to research and just stay aware of just the issues that are going on. Because even though it may not impact you personally, just as a people, we're all being touched by it in some different way or some different form. So that would be my message to people close and afar.
And it's a great message for sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking as well, there must be similar or like sister offices in other cities too. So if folks are interested in this topic, they could look up and see, oh, does my city or my town have a program like this that I could support, if they're interested, because I think one of the awesome things about this summer, although it's been, unprecedented and crazy times and every other word that people like to use, I think a lot more people are keen to educate themselves and to plug in, right? So there's like this re-energized effort to say, okay, I really care about like food justice, like whatever the topic is, like folks are really, at least personally, like I feel energized and just doing that research to see what else is out there. So
yeah, and I think it's also like, to your point, Nicole, like just staying the course and like just keeping that momentum. When we, there is going to be a time where we all return back to the office and to our normal everyday lives, and we get sidetracked and there's so many different things coming our way. So like I'm definitely glad that this time has definitely allowed some of us to really tap into things that we may not have otherwise tapped into as deeply if there wasn't a pandemic. But I think the momentum is definitely key as well.
Absolutely. So looking at your resume and kind of knowing you a little bit too, it seems like the Capital City Fellowship really rooted you in the work that you're doing now. And I wondered if you could tell any young Black, Indigenous people of color or students, specifically as Black women and girls, about that process and how that fellowship or any other fellowships that you may have been fruitful for your own professional development.
Yeah, for sure. So my first internship was actually in corporate America. It was in corporate, and I did that so young. I would think I was like 18 or 19, but it was good for me at the time because that's when I really realized that corporate wasn't the route that I wanted to take. I wanted to do something more hands-on. I wanted to be more into the community. I wanted to be a public servant. And so doing that internship early on helped my trajectory. And even though after I knew I wanted to be a public servant and wanted to be in the community, that's so broad. Like there's so many ways you can be in the community. There's so many public servant jobs you could do. So I just was kind of, at first it was difficult for me to kind of find my niche and find exactly where I wanted to be. But for me, I think the internships and just the bouncing off the different jobs here and there helped me to identify what it was that I really wanted. Corporate, okay, I said I didn't necessarily want to go down that route. When I graduated college, I was working for Baltimore City. I was like, okay, I can do city government. And then when I left Baltimore City government, I went to federal. I said, I don't want to do federal. So, and then that's when I went to DC government. So, just having those different experiences while I was younger, still young, definitely helped me. But so that's what, my biggest advice would just to be open-minded, and just to know that you're not always going to know what you want to do. But if you're open-minded, those different experiences can help.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think that's a great transition actually to our final question. It's sort of a wrap-up question, but if you have a message young BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, especially Black students who are either extremely involved within the movement right now, still navigating their identity and how they fit into the revolution of the system, or struggling with the emotional exhaustion of constantly fighting for equity. Do you have sort of like a message of hope for them as it pertains to that?
Yeah, well, my biggest thing is to rule out fear. I think, a lot of times as people of color and minorities, we feel like sometimes our voices, won't be heard, or we're afraid to speak up about different issues. I think as a society, we're becoming more vocal in those issues, and fighting for what we believe in. So I think my biggest piece would to be just to rule out fear, and just don't be scared, like regardless of what those consequences may be.
I totally agree with that, and I love that message, especially in very white-centered spaces that POC don't usually frequent, and I think that's so important. And thank you for that final message.
No
Um,
problem.
so that's all for now. Thank you so much, Taylor, for being
Thank
here with
you.
us and taking the time to express your insight. It was so helpful. I'm sure for all of our viewers and listeners. Um, so we'll continue these engagements throughout the next few weeks. And from all of us at Inkululeko, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank
Thank
you.
All
you.
right.